started my career in the sport industry. So digital product and digital system for sport industry. Let's say big products in the sense of a product with a huge audience, like for football. I started working for an Italian company whose main clients were UEFA and FIFA. And then I did a similar thing for Formula One, big sport events, huge audience worldwide.
Davide is an experienced product leader, venture builder, and facilitator who helps businesses make better products and business decisions through coaching, strategy, and innovation workshops. With a background spanning product management, circular economy, and venture development, he has successfully guided startups and enterprises in refining their product strategies, optimizing team collaboration, and driving market impact. This episode is brought to you by Snappy Pause, the ultimate power kit for social media managers. From generating captions to creating content ideas and generating thumbnails, Snappy Pause helps you save time and grow faster. Ciao e benvenuto a the executives, Davide.
Ciao Majid, grazie mille. Thank you very much for having me today.
So I hope I did justice to Italian.
You did very well.
So how much would you rate me out of 10, considering I don't speak any Italian?
Since you're first, I would give a solid 8 here.
Solid 8. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'm happy. But thank you so much for taking the time. So I would like to give you the stage and let you explain who is Davide to the listeners.
Thank you. And who's Davide? So Davide I worked in product for many years now, in different countries, very different industries, very different type of product. My background is in physics back in the days, and then I studied for an MBA, so to add sort of the business and strategy aspect to that. And I lived and worked in Italy, the UK, Canada, the Emirates, and now in Germany since 8 years almost. What I do today is mainly 3 things. So I coach one-on-one founders or product manager mostly, or executives at startups. I facilitate, that means working with teams, helping them make a decision instead, or speeding up action and decision-making process. And I also do sort of, let's say, more traditional advisor consulting work with some of these startups, where I still have my hands-on approach, even if it's a bit of an external perspective. But then in my experience, so I worked for, started my career in the sport industry. So digital product and digital system for sport industry, big products in the sense of a product with a huge audience, like for football. I started working for an Italian company whose main clients were UEFA and FIFA. And there I really learned, and then we can probably go deeper in that, but I really learned about not just building stuff that people want, but also building stuff that works well. Because a lot of the product we've been developing are really critical in that time. For example, when there's a match, you have to have 100% reliability. You have to be able to scale to hundreds of millions of users at the same time. And you have stakeholders and clients that are very, very demanding. So really combining the product approach with having a solid solution, it was very, very important. And then I did a similar thing for Formula One. Again, big sport events, huge audience worldwide. And also there, one interesting thing was really to combine this aspect of having a solid product that really works and that it can't fail with how do you innovate into that world that is already very successful as well. How do you bring new strategies, new products? How do you serve different audience or serve more, give more to your audience? And then I would fast forward a bit. I did a couple of roles there in Canada that were not pure product, because there's also a lot of operational strategy there, which also helped me then, improve my approach to strategy in general, business strategy and product strategy. And then in Berlin, I've been working for startups in mostly insurance and healthcare, and also spent some time working as an innovation for an innovation agency. Worked also with big companies in automotive, in the energy sector. Built a venture studio for a waste to energy company in Germany that and the goal of the venture studio is really to explore business models in the circular economy. So really push the boundaries there. And lately, as I said, I'm doing mostly these three things: helping founders, helping product managers grow their company. A lot of the work I do is really about strategy, market positioning, product positioning. Who are your customers? How do you really understand what your customer needs, what your customer want? So really working on both, the two areas of the equation of product market fit. So both product and market. And and it's been quite an interesting journey. Definitely learning a lot, and I see a lot of what I've learned in my career in the work I do with founders and startups.
No, that's a cool ride. You worked with Formula One as well. We will talk about that more in detail. And before we jump into the serious topic, I have an absolutely random question that I tend to ask. It's always different, by the way. So today the question I have for you is, if you could teleport to any place in the world right now, anywhere, the transportation is not a problem. You do this, take the place name, and you would be there instantly. Where would you go and why?
Good question. I gotta go. The first thing that comes to mind, which is Southeast Asia, probably something like Cambodia, Vietnam, because I've never been there, and I love the place. I mean, I've been to some of the countries there, but I love the food. I love the place, and since it's also summer, well, maybe there's not too hot now, it rains, but still, I would love I love the people. They're super nice. I would definitely enjoy to have a quick zap there and then back probably tomorrow morning.
Southeast Asia is amazing. I lived in Thailand, right? So
yeah, it is amazing.
You have to go.
Food is amazing. The people are great. So yes, it's great.
I love Asian food. Like it's spicy because I eat spicy food, right? So for me, it needs to be spicy. There needs to be a bit of kick in the food. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't get happy. So if you don't want a hungry Majid, you should give me some spicy food.
I'm not that brave, but I do like some spicy. But I don't think I can get to your level. But yeah, but I understand.
It's just a fun little exercise I do to sort of break the ice, like we product managers do. But now coming to the topic, today's topic that we have for discussion is mastering product strategy, venture building, decision making, and agile innovation. Something I'm also personally very, very motivated about. But let's start the whole conversation with your journey. You briefly touched upon it. You have a background in physics before you transitioned into product management and venture building. So what was that journey like, and what was the reason that you actually made the shift from physics towards product management?
It's funny because I've asked myself the same question many times, and I haven't really come up with a precise, perfect answer. But I think it's really a mix of interest and opportunity, if you want. So I studied physics, and what drove me to that, I mean, I like the subject. And I think what really drove me to that was also this idea of understanding problems and trying to solve them with, find a physically maybe more elegant explanation with a theory, but also going through dissecting the problem with data, trying to do tests and experiments. So it's a lot about a scientific method there. And how I ended up in product was a bit by chance and opportunity. So I started working with this Italian company as a student first, as a side job. And it was really exciting because there was technology involved. We're really like building software and building also hardware there, traveling and sport. So as a 20-year-old was super exciting. And then sort of starting becoming my job ultimately. And working with there, it's where I sort of started learning what product was and started building my first product. Yeah, and I liked it because I like the complexity of it. I like the fact that there's still experimentation. I like that you can see results, as long as people use it or not, if it works or not, right? And also there's all these aspect of commercial aspect and business aspect to product, which then that's the main reason why then I chose to study an MBA, to really add, let's say, to the analytic and more technical knowledge, the understanding of how business work, and why do you need to take certain decisions that also make sense for the business and not just for the product.
So that's true. I mean, it needs to make sense for the business. If businesses, it's a lot of money that businesses invest, right? Like corporates invest like millions of euros just to get a return back. And I have seen companies, like, for example, I remember I was working in an organization, and I was investing, the budget of the product was almost 2.5 million euros. And the return they expected was zero revenue, like zero. And it was the first time it happened with me. I was surprised. I was like, you're investing so much money, like, and you don't want a return. They said, we want a return, but not revenue. I was like, okay, then
so return,
it has to align with the business strategy, like you said, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's a really good point you made here today, like now, about this whole, that whatever you deliver, it needs to connect with the business strategy. And also the other side that you talked about in your introduction, that it also needs to make sense for the customers, right? You built a cool product. I mean, if it doesn't make sense for the customer, no one will buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of examples in Israel businesses for cool, very cool products. So technically very cool, but that they didn't work out commercially because the was either the market wasn't ready. Even actually, there's even an example in Formula One in the early 2000s. They were one of the first one who built a lot of digital channel for TV, for broadcast, where you could, like, you could see the main race, you could see the pit lane, you could see a lot of multiple channel, but it was just too early. They invested a lot and they did a great job, but it was too early for the market and for the consumers, and that didn't work out. And so then, that kind of stopped a bit their development in this sense. I mean, it's a super successful business in this sense for a few years, but then, they picked it up again, of course, when the whole market was more mature for that.
True. And also, like, I think, like, corporates have this leverage, right, where they have money and they can also try to build the market, so to say. Like, now,
absolutely,
we are living in a time where we are seeing this insane new market, which is that you can build an app yourself. Like before, it used to be so different. Like, not even 5 years ago, like a year ago, it was so different that if you wanted to build an MVP, you still hired a development team, and they would give you a code. And the thing is, if someone has a normal job, they will not have 100, 200, 300 grand lying around. You know what? I will just put it on the MVP, because why not? It might make me a millionaire, but I might also lose the money. But now the insane softwares like, Lovable, Replit, Versal, PS Note. This episode is not sponsored by them, so we are not affiliated with them. Just making it very clear. But it made it so simple that if Davide is sitting in Berlin and he says, you know what, I want to test this idea out, it will take you maybe 2 weeks, and you would have something very basic. It will work. It will store the data online. You are able to accept payments. It has become insanely cheap and easy. And that actually also, I think it's super cool, because then Davide, you're a bad example actually, because you worked in tech. So a person who has not worked in tech builds a tech product. He doesn't understand the processes and stuff and things, right? So if he's only investing, let's say, 1,000, 2,000 euros, and he loses it, he or she, basically he won't feel bad. But if this 1,000, 2,000 starts making him $10,000 a month, oh, okay, cool, there is potential. He will work a bit more. He will get someone in, hey, can you help me with this? He will get Davide involved, that, hey, you know what, can you help me with this? That's really cool. But I want to make a joke first. So it just popped into my head. I'm going to say it now. Before we move on to the next question, it's a physics joke.
Okay, cool.
So E is equal to MC square. You know that, right? So E is equal to MC square is not equal to Davide, because Davide is equal to function of PMF. It just came to my mind now.
You expose ourselves as nerds here, Majid.
It's fine. It was a physics joke. So it was a physics joke.
Totally fine.
But now, to build upon that, right, would love to understand from your perspective, what does it take to go from an idea to a scalable venture? Because I have an idea, like every 5 minutes I will have a new idea, but is everything a scalable venture? I doubt it, And what are the common mistakes you have seen founders making, especially, when they are like launching an idea to like a scalable venture?
So hey, you make a good point. So there are two things there. So as you know, most ideas, most ventures fail at some point, but there's a high risk and a high percentage of let's call it failure, or the fact that the outcome is not a scalable big business. That's one thing. And the other thing that it's maybe a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I do believe that having an idea is at best 10% of the work. Ideas are easy. I mean, if we get you and me together, we probably can create 50 ideas in 30 seconds, right? But the very hard part, the very hard work is going from idea to a product or a service, depends what people do, that customers really buy and use and keep using. Some of the common sort of trap or common mistake I've seen founders do is this one. So loving the idea before they actually have validation, and really trying to maybe be very much focused on the product side of the product market fit, where they keep saying, oh, we just need to add this 5 more feature, or we just need to crack the design or the user flow, and then everybody will love it. There's also the other side of the equation where people focus a lot on sales too early, maybe sales marketing. They do an amazing job, but if you don't have a solid product to back it up, you might have some early success, but then it's not gonna be sustainable. So that's one. The second one for me is they sometimes, this is a common mistake, but also a common pitfall when you do validation, what is market or product validation. Because we have this bias of wanting to, confirmation bias. And you have to be very aware of how you ask questions, how you test your things. Because I've seen people doing it consciously or not, trying to always get confirmation that their hypothesis, their idea is the right one, right? Sometimes it's not done on purpose. I mean, it just like I show you something and say, what do you think, Majid? And you want to be nice and you tell me, well, that's interesting. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I can see that, right? But I think that doesn't give me a lot of information. So I don't know if that's, if you really say it's cool, if you're ready because you're polite, or if you want to get out of the conversation because I'm being annoying, right? I'm not getting a strong signal. But the mistake could be to take that as a positive feedback and keep going. So it's important also to structure your validation in a way that is really testable. Not that I give you the opportunity to you, or the people I'm talking to, or the potential user I'm talking to, the opportunity to say that they actually don't like that thing, or they don't need that thing, or it's not a problem they actually have, right? One other thing that I often try to help founders with is, it's sort of understandable that founders are often in very much pitch mode, because they love the idea. That's what they wake up with that. They probably dream about it. They work a lot on it, and it's a lot of risk to build your own company, your own venture. And of course, they want everybody to love it, and they're looking for whatever, could be investment, could be customer, and so on. So they tend very much to be in this constant pitch mode, which I think has to be taken a bit with carefully, because sometimes, the typical example is you ask somebody, what do you do? I have a company, or what your company does, and they go into super detail explaining what they do. And your speaker or your counterpart could be interested. So yes, that's great, but most of the time they might just think about something else, or walk away. And I think that you potentially lose an opportunity to either get some valuable feedback, or get potentially somebody interested in what you do, or simply understand that that's not the right person to talk to at this time about your work. We can talk about something else. So what I really try to explain them to really have this also counterbalance this behavior of listening and try to really get some information. And often, even doing validation doesn't need to be done in formal setting and while you show something. So if you ask about their problems, about their work, ask about what they find challenging, you might get some very valuable insights in what you're trying to build. And what I tell them that is very sometimes a bit controversial is the most challenging thing is really to stop value the fact of being right all the time, right? As in, okay, my idea is the best idea, as in my hypothesis is the best hypothesis, or like, oh, I'm so good that I figured it out by myself. That doesn't really matter. It's great if we have hypothesis, we have solution in our mind, and that's important. That's how it works. But it's really important also to be able to change your mind as soon as you have enough evidence that what you're thinking is not important. So don't love so much the solution you have in mind. Like really, one way to look at this is what they say: really fall in love with the problem, or fall in love with this process of figuring out what to do in order then to reach your outcome, your goals, your success, whether it's commercial or whatever it is that you're figuring out how you do that. So what you build, it's relatively less important as long as you actually solve the problem, or you build something that people want to use or want to buy.
I mean, you touched on a very nice point. When I was building my first product for myself, I went to my mentor and I asked him, "Hey, can you give me feedback?" And I was surprised with his answer. He is the nicest person I know. Like, he's a super cool mentor, and I have huge respect for him. And he said, "No." Like upfront, no. I was like, huh?
Interesting.
I was like, "You're my mentor. I need help, man. Come on, help me." He's like, "Majid, today I will give you a very important lesson of life." He said that the reality is, if you go to your friends or family, they will always say what you're doing is good. They will never say you're doing something bad. He gave me an example that, if a child goes to a mother, the sketches are not like Picasso standard, right? They are just scribbles on the paper. But the mom doesn't put the child down that they can be improved. They are so cute, they're so nice, and they'll put it on the fridge and then so on. And it's a way that we are programmed as human beings. What we will do as human beings is, if I go to my brother or my mother or my family, they will always say it's the coolest idea. But like you mentioned, is it a good product market fit? Is there even a product market fit that exists? They don't know. They're not my customers. They might, even if you launch a book or something, they might like buy it just for the sake of buying the book, but they will never read it. So if you're actually trying to be an author, and you go to the people to actually get feedback, they will buy it, but they will not read it. So it's pretty much aligned with what you're saying.
No, that's true. And you also have to differentiate whether you're looking for validation of your product or your idea or your book, or if you're looking for support for people around you. They're both important. I mean, especially if you go on this journey of trying to figure out what to build. Doing it alone is very hard. So having support of people that keep saying, no, keep going, you're onto something, it's very important. But when you're looking for a signal of will people buy this, you need to ask, especially with people that are closer, you need to ask questions a totally different way. You can't just say, I did this, as you said, I did this, is it nice? And they're always going to say, yeah, it's great, it's really cool. Not that for super good intention. It's not that they're trying to fool you or anything. It's very, very comes from a very good place, but doesn't give you a signal if people like them, even if maybe your brother or your mother could be part of your audience, if people then would actually at the end buy it and use it and every day or when they need it. Yeah. I mean, that's a very important point.
I mean, that's what I do, right? If someone comes to me, Majid, and either friends of mine or some family, they come to me and they say, "Hey, can you give me feedback?" I want do you want family feedback or do you want real feedback?
Yeah.
So then they're like, "What's the difference?" I'm like, family feedback is good stuff. Keep it up. Real feedback is I'm brutally going to give you feedback if this will work or not. And a friend of mine recently came to me. He wanted to build financial software. And I said the same. He said, "No, I want real feedback. I can take it. I'm a man. So I'm a grown-up adult, So I gave him feedback and he was like, "Majid, I don't know if I should even build this. I'm like, yes, that's the whole point. Because the problem I see is, one, you're not from the fintech industry, you have no clue about the regulations. So, and the thing is, you need licenses for what you want to build. That's dangerous, So if you build this without, I mean, you can build it without a license, but if you sell it without a license in Germany, you will be screwed.
Exactly.
I said, and the thing is, what did I say in the beginning to him? I said, convince me to pay you €4 a month, because that was his pricing model. Convince me to pay you €4 a month, and if you do that, I will personally help you draft a PRD. I will help you draft the strategy. I will help you draft everything. Don't need to worry about anything. I will just do it for the sake of it, because I know I would like to help you then. But he couldn't. 2 hours, he could not. I said that this shows that there is a problem. I'm not being a douche about it. I'm not being the devil's advocate there, but I wanted to bring reality to him, right? I mean, I was trying to, and then he actually ran it by a few other people who were like in his company, higher ranks and so on, director. They gave him the same feedback. He said, do not enter that domain, because that is a very, very hard domain. You need to be fluent in German, because all the government communication will be in German. They don't speak English. They don't want to speak English. Even if they do, they will not. So
exactly.
how you deal with the data is all protected by law. So they don't want to go outside that particular framework, which I respect and I understand,
No.
so it's fine. Now moving from there, because at the end of the day, you help teams, right, come up make better products, right? Tell us about the secret sauces that you use, the frameworks that you put on the spaghetti, I mean the product, and to guide them so they can actually make a better product decision.
There are different things, but also, which is a good follow-up of what we were talking before. First of all, definitely helping teams understand what they're building and why. So what the goal they have, what the problem they're trying to solve, do they have it clear? What they're trying to solve it for, and who is their, the target? And also having an idea how they would know they actually solving the right problem, and that solution is actually solving the right problem, right? It's successful. So having this metric, having this hypothesis at the beginning, depends where you are, if it's a mature product or if you're at the beginning. The beginning can just be a guess, totally fine. But you need to figure out if you're going in the right direction. And to do that, and especially to make sure that they are aligned within the team and with the wider company, again, if it's a company, one startup, one product, or if it's a team within a larger organization, so you need to understand where you sit in the overall strategy, business goals, where people are going. It's very important to create alignment there. And what I do, this is where I use my facilitation skills, is to typically create some sort of workshops. Although here the word workshop has many meaning for many people, but to give you an example and to give sort of a couple of techniques that people can basically start using right away. The difference for me, the difference for a meeting and a workshop is that the workshop should condense a lot of work in a few hours and end up with a clear outcome. What is a decision? What is a prototype? What is a sketch? What is a plan of who to interview? But it has to end up with a clear action item to follow up on. And I use mainly two techniques. I mean, they are taken from some framework like the design sprints, which is I think one of the reference framework, but of course it takes long. It's a week if you do the whole process. Or the new sort of book that came also from out of Jake Nabel's Click, which is also a very interesting framework. But I give you two ones. So one, it's sort of a principle, and that is quite unusual for people, and it's what it's called working together alone. What does that mean is that in most workshop, typically what happens, or meeting, people talk, right? They discuss. And you have two problems with it. One, that usually you have the people that are either louder or more senior or looked at or regarded as the expert, that tend to dominate the conversation. And the people that are a bit more reserved, that maybe need more time to think, tend to be excluded. So you don't get everybody's contribution. And again, it could also be biased through the hippo phenomenon or the most senior person in the room. And the second thing is that typically those conversations tend to go in circles, right? Because you try to find a consensus and there's no really a decision made at the end. So you take meetings after meeting after meetings, and it's frustrating for everybody. One better way is to this work together alone, which means that if you give an example, so we want to ideate or think of some solution, for example, improve our onboarding. Huh? Let's say we have a problem with onboarding, and then we put together a team that's probably product, maybe marketing or sales, depends, designer, tech, other business expert. Usually would be great to keep it to 7-8 people maximum, but depends if possible. And the thing they do is, instead of like doing brainstorming where everybody writes down and then puts on the wall and they discuss again, the idea is really to, yes, you write it down, you take some time to write down your idea, your solution, and then probably you select the top two, depending, we can fine tune. And then, yes, you put it on the wall, but nobody says anything. It's mostly silent, which is weird for people at the beginning. And then you give some people to read through those without names. So, everybody is the same. Everybody is the same. And then what the other technique you can use with that is what is called note and vote. So the note you write down on your post-it, you put it on the wall or mirror board, and then people vote silently. Again, you have a bunch of votes. And then you can rate your solution from the highest vote to the lowest vote. And then there's another element that is very important to that, which is the role of one person who decides, because that's sometimes very hard. People don't take this seriously. They feel empowered. Could be the product manager, could be the VP, could be whoever is in responsible to make that decision. And they will have a special vote at the end. They would say, okay, I see all of this. Maybe there are some questions. And then they would say, okay, this is the solution I choose. Like, I don't know, let's redesign the flow, for example. In a couple of hours, you can go from a problem to a decision on what to test, most likely, right? No, it doesn't have to be the final solution. And you have the possibility to get everybody's opinions. Everybody feels heard, feels like they can contribute. But at the end, there's the person who is responsible for the decision can take the decision, and then the team goes and either build that, or most likely it's going to be a 2-week test or a week test, depending where you are in your discovery journey. Those are two simple techniques that really make. I saw them, and I see them making a big difference in teams.
True. I mean, anonymizing already helps. Yeah. Because one thing I've seen whenever I've been building products is people tell me, hey, you know what? This guy is like a fancy C-level is your decision maker. Talk to them. But when I talk with them, they are so disconnected from the actual day-to-day. They don't really know the day-to-day problems, you know. I mean, yes, they have the budget and so on. I'm not saying they're not needed. They are needed because they bring in structure for the team, right? But and then when you're doing product discovery and you put like a chief risk officer with the junior risk analyst or something like that, they have this sort of feeling that if they say something wrong, so but the thing is, there is nothing wrong. One thing I've learned through my experience and also like building this podcast is the easiest thing to do is saying that you're wrong to the next person. The easiest thing. I can easily negate everything anyone says. You know why? Because I mean, I will have different experience. And the thing is, if you took a decision, you took the decision based on the context, the time, the pressure, the environment, so you took the decision based on the atmosphere for you, thing. So I don't have the same atmosphere. There is this movie Sully also, right? Where literally he talks about that the plane crashed and they landed it in the middle of the river or lake, and then in the court hearing they redid the thing, and the pilot actually said, how many times did the pilot actually try this before, like actually being like immediately a bird hits the engine and suddenly it takes, like, he knows that, okay, I need to make a left, like everything will be fine. But it's ignoring the human element, So the thing is, we need to empower people as well, right? Like you mentioned, like giving anonymity. That's a really cool solution. I mean, I think it also enables, right? And then talking with the real people who are using, who you're building for.
Absolutely.
I mean, if whenever I procured a software, I said, you know what, the team does the analysis because they would use it on a day to day. Just give me like suggestion, and then the negotiation, the pricing, the handling, the partnership, the contract. That's my problem.
Yeah, yeah.
How do I take care of it? You don't need to worry about. That's my pain. And I think like you also touched upon like the whole design thinking, right? So what I have noticed is design thinking can help you, or it can also break like a lot of things in this in sort of finding ideas, you know. So
Absolutely.
what kind of like challenges or what kind of stories have you seen there where it actually, let's take two stories, you know, where one, you saw that the team was completely misaligned, you know, and then design thinking even made it worse. And then there was one where you realize that actually they understand that it made them even better, you know, they were good but it made them like perfect, so to say.
What I think is, in general, this is a bit of a general attitude I have. So tools and frameworks, what is design thinking, whether you use design sprints, whatever you like, continuous discovery, tool and frameworks are really helpful if you use them when they are needed, and not just you use it because it's the thing to use, right? It's a bit of if you want, very very simple and silly analogies, like it's not that if you have a hammer in your hand, you have to hammer everything, right? There's something that is useful and something where it's just going to break stuff. So that's to me is the principle. And unfortunately, if you speak especially about design thinking, a lot of it, when you have this framework, they come from principles. And often you have, talk agile later, you have the manifesto, you have a set of principles. You say, okay, you need to empathize with your user, you need to understand the problem, you need to sit down with them and see what they do now, right? And then you need a way to put principle into practice, because principles are loose by definition. And so, over time, people come up with this framework, whether it's design thinking is one of them, or you have human-centered design, you have others ones. And the risk is that sometimes when you just look at the process, because then it's easier to learn the process to think about the principles, you kind of lose sight of what the principle was. You just apply the technique and say, okay, the technique is going to save me. And that's where I think go wrong. So for example, one of the problem that we mentioned earlier is that maybe design thinking or of workshop in general popularized this idea of brainstorming, which often ends up in people putting a lot of idea on the wall, maybe discussing it, and then maybe they choose one, but typically it ends up with choosing something that definitely is not a refined idea if you come up in 2 hours. And it would need a lot of work, but you end up with a list of things that probably never going to be touched again. And also, it's almost become like the fun activity to do. So instead of doing the serious meeting, we do the fun activity. They give them some breather to people. We give them some space for creativity. And that kind of, and I've seen it firsthand. To when you talk to people about workshop, they kind of look at it. This is kind of important. We don't need a workshop because they think about this idea of maybe. Sort of team spirit, or exactly give it some time to creativity, maybe a bit more hackathon kind of direction where yes, we do it because it's fun, but it's not really the core thing of what we do. So I've seen it recently, actually, going a bit in the wrong direction, or failing this methodology. Where I'm helping a startup figuring out, fixing or improving their B2C funnel, for example. And so the one way they tackled it, I don't want to say the name just because not nice to. it seems to talk negative about them, but that's not the point because we've been working with it. It's just an example that a lot of people do. So one thing they did is, okay, let's do a workshop where everybody comes together and then everybody express their own idea on how to fix this. And then we end up with, 10 people in the meeting, 10 different approaches. and no really way for the responsibles, for the business leader to actually choose. And there is to go with whatever the most senior person said because it's safer probably. But the idea that was like, oh, we need to look at the customer, we need to empathize with them. So all these principles, yeah, were there, and honestly there. I mean, not saying, but the execution of it kind of made it not possible to really create those insights and on decisions. At the same time, we did again sort of this similar exercise with this approach that I said before, with sort of silent voting, sort of silent writing and voting, and then a decision-making process. We made it a little bit sophisticated there, but the point at the end, everybody was aligned to say, okay, this is what we're going to test in the next 2 weeks. We're going to do in this case, we're going to try some social media campaign to see what performs better, what message resonates with our customers, and then we're going to build a funnel there to see if it works. So it was great because instead of saying, now we give you all the inputs and you have to decide what to do, in 6 months, you're basically on your own and come with results. That's like we're all aligned and say, yes, this is a difficult problem. We don't have the perfect solution, but we have the next step. So in 2 weeks, we come back with result. If it's, going positive, continue the direction. If not, we take the second item on our list and try something different.
I mean, no, that's very true. I mean, it's like sometimes what I tend to do is I tell the C-level, don't come to the workshop. I don't.
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes I just do that because I know the person is very vocal, loud, as also you mentioned, loud and also vocal. I say, because if you just want to give your opinion, then just tell them, hey, we do it like this. Don't waste time in like bringing external people like myself, running like 2 days workshop, because a workshop is, you cannot do much in a day, 8 hours. If it's an 8-hour workshop, you minimum need 2 days workshop. I'm like, if I'm coming in for 2 days and your team is not going to be doing anything, and at the end of the 2 days, we realize, okay, we do what the CPO said, then let's just do what the CPO said, why waste time and money basically. So because if you really want this workshops can be very powerful, because I have seen like some CPOs actually take it very seriously. Like they actually, when we start the workshop, right? So I have a note sometimes. I say, you know what? Don't think we have titles right now. Like no one has a designation.
Yes.
Even if you're an intern, you're the same. You are a team. Everyone is product. There's nothing called product manager, senior product manager, head of product, and nothing is wrong here. So if you have an idea, put it. Maybe it will lead to something cool and brilliant. But we talked a lot about challenges. Like if we can talk a lot more about challenges of companies. Let's talk about your success. Like I would love to hear one story where when Davide joined in that project, like a company or whatever you did there, where it made an impact for them, and they were so happy that they were like, that was the best thing we did.
I wish that was so easy, but but I have a couple of stories that turn out to be good success story. One a bit more recent, I would say. I joined this company that is a startup in Berlin, and they process claims for insurance companies. So this is called third-party administrator. When I joined, they were actually a bit of a crossroads. So they had a B2C business line, and they wanted to move. They wanted to add a B2B. So they had a client on a B2B as well. And then the third thing they were trying to do was like to build an insurance product that they would sell, through partnership and so on. And being hired as a product manager, they realized, okay, we don't have the technology infrastructure, technology product to really drive this growth or this success that we want to get. But again, they had 3 different things going on at the same time, right? And it was one product and one product team. There were not like 50 people in the tech department, tech product. The first thing I did was really trying to align C-levels in this case to a strategic direction, whether it was, the B2C side or trying to build this insurance product and or going to this other sort of B2B again, but towards serving the other insurance companies. Long story short, there was quite a lot of evidence that the insurance product side was not so clear. So they had some evidence that was actually not very easy product to sell because they did some good tests before. And on top of that, sort of all the responsible people at the higher level, they all had a different idea of what to do there. They were completely misaligned. And the risk was clearly here. So, the idea was like put them together and realize that there were no idea, the direction was not clear. They still had to figure out a lot of things and the risk was very high. On the other side, we had a promising business with the big clients and basically no tech support because things were done it was the first one. It was absolutely great. They kind of built some, spreadsheet and some process to figure it out. But of course, that wouldn't be sustainable to growth. So first was decision-making sort of strategy workshop to realize, okay, I think since we have limited resources, that TPA business is our best bet. And then there was a question of what to build there. So how do we support that? So there, again, we did I created a workshop, use a story mapping technique. So with quite a lot of people actually to really map out the whole journey. And of course, there was a lot more than what we could do in version 1, but really having basically the whole system mapped out, or what it should do, what it could do in different modules, really help people visualize that. And I say, yeah, this is really cool. And then we talked about potential strategies, how to build this as a platform, and so on in the future. I really help people both at a high level seeing the potential, and at the more operational level see, oh yes, I can see what this thing can do and how it can help them. So then we start building that, and that became a good decision. Because that became the most profitable part of the business, and also the tool the product was first tested internally helped improving productivity and reducing mistake dramatically, because of course with a spreadsheet it's very easy to make mistake and it's slow and everything, but having that and also connecting the whole chain from receiving this claim to processing to getting approval to bringing to finance to create the reporting suddenly was done in a much more smooth and easy way rather than having to scramble around. So that worked well in that case. And and then became sort of the direction of the company still today.
Because I don't think everyone understands what you do on day to day, right? So let's take the same customer, right? So because normally there is like the product person, an internal product person, who's writing user stories, who's doing sort of internal stakeholder management. Because just for someone, like if you're going in for let's say a week, a month, even if you want to learn stakeholder management, like who's my most important stakeholder, how should I communicate, it takes you a month,
Yes.
Because it's like companies are huge, companies are big. So tell us what you like for someone who doesn't understand product management, like what you do. How would you explain it to them? What are you doing in sort of in these companies? People understand product market fit and so on, but what would they expect? Because the thing is, people are often scared from consulting, right? But you're not exactly a consultant. You touched this like in the beginning. You said you're hands-on as well.
Yeah.
So would love to understand that.
Yeah, especially in this case, I was really basic part of the team, so I was definitely hands-on. Especially what the product manager do, it's it's funny. So I think it goes into phases and depends where the product is. But first of all, really, as you said, understanding what kind of problem you're trying to solve here, and then understanding who you're solving to, or at least what's the hypothesis, what could be these customers. Then there's a problem like, why is this important for the organization and the business? What's the value for the business here? And to do that, you have to talk to a lot of people, right? Decision makers and so on, and really try to not so much asking them why we're doing this, which also is a question, but really try to understand. It's a bad way to put it, what's in it for them, but in the sense of what is their strategic intent behind it, right? So, if you talk to the head of sales, of course, they have their goal, the strategy, the same as customer service, marketing, business development, and so on. So try to understand what's their motivation, or what's their goal, whether it's as a team, as a department, or personal, and really talk to that. And that's where, stakeholders, understanding stakeholders is very, very important, and or using this stakeholder mapping approach to understand who is influential in the decision, who can support you, needs to be convinced, who is neutral, right? But if they might change their mind depending on what's important, relevant for them. And I'm not talking here about bad intention. As like, every person, every department might have just different goals, because they tackle the overall strategy in different reasons. And there might be a alignment problem, but it's also normal, right? So there's really about creating this relational rapport. I think product management is a lot about talking to people and understanding people and communicating with people, and trying to rephrase to them what's the problem they're trying to solve, what's the goal they're trying to achieve, and why you think or why the approach you're taking is a good approach, and taking them along with you. I learned that a hard way in my experience, where you hear the problem, talk to people. Yes, I understood the problem. You go away, come back after 3 weeks. This is the best solution you can ever have, right? Expecting trumpets and stuff, and people look at it as like, that's okay. Mild indifference in the best case, or they're like, I don't know idea what you're saying, right? Because you need to take them along with you. And most likely, if you do it by yourself, you're not going to get it right. First of all, even if you know the market very well, but in general, you have to take them with you. So that's one thing: communicating, sort of negotiating, understanding. The other thing is really this part of experimentation, I would say. Let's put maybe three stuff. The first one is the communication and stakeholders management and understanding, including customers, business, and so on. The second, I think, is this as experimentation or discovery, if you want to look at it, because how can you promise, if you build something new, you can't promise results in a timeline, because you haven't done it before, right? If you do the same thing over and over, if you're a carpenter, you build 100 tables, the 101, I know exactly how much it costs, how long it's going to take, right? It's that's the case. But if I'm building something new for the first time, there's no telling. So how do you communicate that to your stakeholders, that they probably want to say, okay, how much money are you going to spend? When can we see something, and so on? And to me, that way is to keep the liberty to experiment, and constantly sort of having this checkpoint to say, okay, my first hypothesis is this one. I can run a test for 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks I can show you whether this was right or wrong, and then we can keep the next step and build on the next step. And once you do that experimentation part, which ideally should build from a lot of stuff that quickly you discard, to building up to your MVP, if you like, or up to your first usable prototype or product, to go to market. But then the critical part there is the implementation part. Right? Once you know more or less what you're building, of course, you need to then be able to implement it. And that's where you really you should work together with your designer and tech team from the very beginning, but that's where really the tech team plays even more important role, and being able to balance, architecture, stability, what kind of technology are we going to use? Are we going to build something that already scales, so we can build something to throw away and then rebuild it, and once we know better. And then once that works too, in the best case, then there's all a part of go-to-market and growth. So day-to-day, what a product manager does is talk to people and understand them, analyze data, whether it's market data, whether it's conversation, whether it's analytics from your product, and figure out experiments and solutions. I would say, and create a lot of alignments. That's where also the workshop thing can technique can come in handy. But you really need to understand. A lot is about understanding the different element, from how the product is built, how is packaged, how is sold, who would be interested to what problem is solving, and how to measure those that you're actually going the right direction.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very much true. That's very much true. So now, because the last part of the conversation, I want to keep it around Davide. Like, again, coming back to the person, who is your ideal customer?
In the spirit of what we said before, it's something I'm also experimenting with. At the moment, my ideal customer are younger startup, maybe pre-seed, Series A, that are trying to figure out their product market fit, or they are just like figuring out their growth. And also they are learning what the problem they typically have is they don't really understand their customer. They're not clear who their customer are or how to find who their customer are. So customer discovery, if you want. And they're also not so clear on where to start to build their product. They might have, typically they do have an idea, or they already start building something, and they have this a bit of idea like, oh, we need to keep adding stuff. We talked to a couple of customers and they need these features and these features before actually moving forward to the test. So there where I really help them, taking it maybe a step back, focus on your market and how to progress, not just take one feedback and implement it, but how to really go deeper, understand what's behind that feedback, right? And then use some of these product discovery techniques, experimentation, prototyping, and so on. So that's typical one. The other one are product managers that are either looking at growing as maybe their career or their skills or their understanding of product and product management. So that's where the coaching comes in. Or sometimes they have a particularly tricky problem they're trying to solve, whether it's work, could be stakeholder related, could be more technical product related, and they need some help to not figure it out, some guidance and some discussion. And third is also, I've worked as well with bigger company, mature companies, more on the consulting side. And again, typically there's where they have specific product problems, whether they're figuring out their next 3-year strategy. It's like, okay, where are we going with this, right? Or very specific, like, we don't know if we should build this feature or not. How can we figure that out? And sort of the main things I'm doing. And now I'm really more focused on sort of startups, young startups, young founders, and product managers. But one thing I would like to look at also to look a bit more, maybe more mature organization where there's this specific problems within their product organization typically.
Mm-hmm. I think with your experience, mature organizations can definitely leverage your experience, right? Because you have experience, you can help optimize processes, you can help optimize documentation. Because like the biggest problem I've seen from corporates is they have way too much documentation.
Sometimes, yes.
And I mean, and half of it is sadly useless, So you can help mature companies as well.
And what I like to think as well, that one of the things I really bring the experience, the sort of theoretical knowledge around methodology and so on, but also a lot of realism, right? Because it's very good, and I'm the first one to promote that, to have these good principles on how to do product well, and the process you should take and so on. But also you need to be able to implement in the reality of the organization. So the organization said you can't change all the process at once. So you need to be and also their boundaries. Like we did touch before about regulation. Sometimes you can't just experiment on stuff because you have compliance, you have laws to abide to. So you have to be able to figure that out in a different way. So I think that's very important.
Exactly. One final question. Imagine you're standing in an elevator. There are only two people in the elevator. It's you and someone who has the buying power, that he can buy the service that you offer, right? and you have only exactly 60 seconds and you want to pitch what you do.
Two ways. So the sort of elevator pitch would be to briefly try to understand the problem, if I can, like in 20 seconds. So, and then tell them, I can help you solve that problem by reducing time spent on meetings or decision making into a few hours up to 2-3 days workshop, where we can really get out of that with a decision and a plan forward. And I can also help you get deeper into that product, to the problem and solution, to see whether you have the right strategy and equipment, the resources to actually tackle that. That will be the very short one. The second part of the answer is, what I usually try to do is not so much pitching. I don't know if that's one of my strengths, but I really try to understand. I try to engage people in conversation and try to understand what they're struggling with. Because selling workshop, I find it a bit hard, right? Unless you have a very specific. And then what works for me typically is start to show them they understand their problem, they really can understand what they're saying, that they listen to, and maybe give them already, if possible, some value in terms of how they could go about it, even before mentioning any service. And then that when that clicks deeply, then people then are, well, the best time is where they actually ask you, but could you help with this? And you say, yeah, of course I could help with this. It would be great. Let's set up a call, right? Or sometimes it's a bit more like let's exchange, and then we follow up with them and you try to build that rapport. Especially when it's one-on-one. When you're talking about marketing and so on, it's different. But when it's one-on-one, more than the pitch, because the pitch I find very risky. So if I pitch you something, if I want to sell you something right away, if you're interested, it's great. But if you don't know what it is, or you're not necessarily thinking about that stuff now, then probably not gonna go.
It's bad idea. No, I like your approach. I mean, I like your approach. Like if you use first 20 seconds to get the problem.
Especially if you talk to executives or more people with they have more strategy, typically have 1 to 3 big problems they are preoccupied with. They're strategic problem, whether it's a new market, whether it's like sales going down, whatever it is, they typically have those things. So if you hit there, they're gonna listen to you. If not, executive don't have much time, so they're just going to think about something else, right? And if you the tricky bit is really to uncover what's the issue in their mind at that moment.
So, final question to you: what's next in your journey, and how do you plan to continue shaping the future of product management?
I'm planning to continue growing sort of my coaching practice that I find very useful to help other founders, and facilitation, which I believe it's a very helpful tool. And so there, I'll probably try to build more content as well. So, stay tuned on that one. In the meantime, I'm having probably, as the time of this podcast, this recording, helping one organization, a big organization, to grow their product. So it's in a growth product role, if you want.
That's cool. I wish you all the best with that. I hope it enters into hyper growth mode as the new word, like hyper insane
Yes.
kind of growth which we see.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best for that. But with that, I would like to say thank you so much for joining in, Davide. It was actually very fun. And we touched like a lot of like stories, from your, instead of talking just theory, we are switching more towards talking about real examples, you bringing out what you have seen, the good, the bad, the ugly, from the corporate and from the startup world. So this is becoming like better and better. But is there something you would like to say as a closing remark with the listeners who made it this far?
Thank you, and the listeners definitely for making it this far. And as a closing remarks, when you talk, the origin was product strategy, and I would say it's a very important topic to focus and really have the understanding of what is the market, what is your competitive advantage, do you have the resources to go after it, and how you're going to structure or implement that potential structure, and then being able to adapt, giving signals from the market. That I would say is the sort of attitude that is the most important thing.
Thank you again. I'm sorry I did not search that in Italian. How do you say thank you? But thank you so much.
Thank you, Majid.
Thank you so much again, Davide. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to The Executives this week. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. And however, if you want to connect with Davide, his LinkedIn would be mentioned in the description section. So he is a super cool guy. And if you want to understand what he's doing, and if you are the right kind of customer for him, just send him a message. He replies generally very fast. Just sync up with him and see if there are some synergies, because that's what we are doing. Until next time, this is Majid signing off.